Hey, we're officially live. Everyone should be able to see us and hear us now. Say hi. Let's check your mic. Hey, I can hear you. Nice. Chat. Let us know if either of us is muted, frozen, anything like that happens. We'll get it fixed right away. Other than that, everything seems good on our end. So we're gonna push forward. This is the official deep dive series that I've been putting. I've been putting this out for I think a year now. I've been hitting every role in Cyberpunk Red, and now I'm venturing out into oh, you couldn't hear him? Let's see. Check your mic again. Here, let me make sure oh, yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me now? PWB, thanks for the chat. Thanks for the catch. Yeah, it looks like your audio might have been muted. Nice. PWB says good. So we're good to go. Now,
All right,
now
cool.
I'll officially move forward. This is our deep dive, like I was saying. I've been putting this out a while. I've been doing every role. I still got a couple other roles to do. I try to bring in a guest every time, someone who's played that role or something like that. And then we just deep dive it. We get into interesting conversations, kind of dissect it. It's not really like a crunch sort of thing, but that's as far as roles, as far as the different roles in Cyberpunk. This is a little bit different, and I'm going to be doing a few other deep dives like this. I want to dive into the vehicles of Red. There's a couple other supplements I want to do, but this one is about medicine in the time of Red. I know a lot of you have probably seen it on the Cybernation Uncensored website. It's been created by my buddy here, Stinkpalm, and we'll get into we'll deep dive this thing. I'll get into a little intro about that, and we'll get into that in just a moment. Before we do that, I'd like Stinkpalm. I'd like you to kind of introduce yourself, let people know where they can find you online. You've been a supporter of our community for a while in brand, and now contributing content, and now officially playing and streaming with us. But yeah, give people the details where they can find you, what you've been doing, and all that good stuff.
So I'm Tracy or Stinkpalm007. You can find me as Stinkpalm007 on Twitter mostly, but I'm also in the Discord, Cybernation Discord, and same thing in our Twitch chat. Um, I play a bunch of games. I've played a bunch of games for forever, and so yeah, I made this thing for Cyberpunk. I have some other plans for different supplements for Cyberpunk as well. But I'm playing in Fallout Asia with GM Capricious Nature every Friday, and so been a blast. I also have I'm working on right now a D&D 5e supplement for circus themed bard subclasses. So I'm making like lion tamers and contortionists.
Nice.
So that'll be a lot of fun when I get done with that. Um, and yeah, that's a lot of the stuff that I work on. I always got something that I'm working on and sharing out. Oh, and I have an awesome article on Cybernation Uncensored on the economy of Night City and why the scarcity economy has persisted for more than 20 years since the corporate war. Kind of explaining how that can work and how Night City can still have manufacturing, but also not have new goods available for people to buy. So that's some of the stuff that I've been doing.
Hell yeah. And I recommend everybody check out cybernationuncensored.com. And I'll be dropping links in the chat as we go and as we deep dive this, but definitely go to the website and you'll see right there on the front page, scroll down, you'll see all the community content that's been created and put out there on the site. You can even organize it by hashtags there on the site. I think free stuff is the one with all the downloadable goodies and everything. There's also ones for lore articles, all that stuff. But just dive into the website and all that and see all the great things that Tracy here, aka Stinkpalm, has been creating and putting out there. It's great stuff, man. I love it. People love it. Like I told you earlier, I've been working with Night City Stories, our official partner for West Marches. I've been talking to them about some other, evolving our partnership. I'll be making some announcements on that very soon publicly. But just today I was talking to them and they were all out of nowhere just kind of brought it up like, oh, we love all the things you've been doing over there at Cybernation and that community content stuff that you've been creating, that those assets are very useful, especially that medicine one. And they brought it up. So it's getting out there. People are loving it. So props to you, man. Great job. So, like I said, we're going to deep dive this. Before I get into that, though, I just have a couple things I want to announce. First is I want to give a shout out to my supporters on Patreon. Lately, I've been launching a lot of gameplay there on Patreon. And I know the seats have been filling fast. Anybody that's part of that, don't stress. I'm going to be launching more. I have a Fallout one that I'm going to be launching soon, and then some other Cyberpunk special novelty games with guest appearances and all kinds of stuff. But from the gameplay down to the shoutouts to the NPC creations, the consultations, all that stuff. I love the support. All of you are the fuel on my fire. I just want to give a shout out to Kevin Moreno, Joseph Holder, William Huddleston, Naomi Madlass, Jamie Minch, John Erfurt, Leaded Coffee, Michael Edmonds, Chris Anderson, Dolan Pondsmith, Matt James, Roten, Revolver Gray, Steve Barr of Sirenscape. Sirenscape is an official sponsor here at Cybernation Uncensored. Zeno, Zach, who's also Capricious Nature, GM's games with us, creates content. We're going to do a deep dive on his vehicles of Red soon. Cyber Smiley, who runs Tales of the Forlorn Dopes series with us with Data Fortress 2020. Shout out to Cyber Smiley. Raven, Andy Stretton, Copious Salt, Tracy Goodwin. Hey, what's up? Daniel Terry, Nicholas King, and Alex Maxwell. Shout out, seriously, all of you are the fuel on my fire. Like I say, I create this stuff because of the support, the validation, all that is just absolute motivation, seriously. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. It means a lot. The other thing I want to shout out, it's my anniversary with my beautiful wife, Val Mulligan. I know a lot of you have probably seen me shout her out. She's always in the chat when I stream, when she can, when she's not stuck at work or hustling or on set. Aside from that, she plays with Team Veritas every month, the last Wednesday of every month. But we've been partners for a long time. When I was a touring musician, she would hit the road with my band, helping the merch table and road crew. When we do filmmaking, she acts, produces, production design, all kinds of stuff. She's been my partner forever. We're on our 24th anniversary since we met and started dating, and our marriage anniversary is coming up next month. So we'll be celebrating for a little while here. But I wanted to take a moment to shout her out because she's my partner, my best friend. Love you, Val. And if anybody sees her online, give her a shout out. Tell her happy anniversary. Let her know that I gave a shout out. And show her some love. I'd really appreciate that. Let's get Sirenscape going here. Thanks, chat, saying congratulations.
Yeah, congrats. That's awesome. It's also kind of crazy because we're 4 days out from my 24th anniversary with my wife.
Oh, really?
So, that's kind of crazy.
That's cool. That's awesome. Here, let's see here. I'm gonna get the MedTech sound set going for us. There we go. Little background stuff for us to enjoy. Ooh, did we freeze? Are we back? Looks like I might be frozen. There we go. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. But no, I've got little MedTech sounds going. Shout out to Sirenscape. I might change it up to a Ripperdoc sound set soon. And then over to the new Trauma Team set that they just put out. Everyone should check out Sirenscape. Love that shit. This is the Medicine of Red supplement that Stinkpalm created. It's amazing. I want to dive in. There's some lore and community contributed content in there, like fun stuff. We'll skip over that. I want to recommend everybody watching, like I will throughout this stream, to go download this, check out all the details for yourself. I'll be putting the link in chat as we go. I'm also going to bring it up on screen here in a moment. But Mr. Stinkiest of Palms, why don't you bless us with your knowledge of this supplement you have created, and I'll pass the mic to you.
Yeah, so first I want to give a shout out to some of the people that really made this come to life. Capricious Nature, I went to him originally and wanted to share some of my stuff that I made, and he's like, we need to get this into a supplement. And he really kind of lit that fire. We got this going.
Oh, yeah.
And then on this last update, Linda Whitson volunteered from the Cybernation Uncensored Discord, and was like, hey, I know how to edit stuff. Let's can I help out? And so she's been helping tons. And then we have all these other people that contributed stories, and all the NPCs in there, they're all people's characters. So there's a lot of love in there,
Let me back that up. Before you keep going into this as we dive in, I want to back that up and just say absolutely, our community is the best. And it's just so funny how you start creating something, and then someone else is like, oh man, you should put that out. Let's beef that up. And then the second you get going, someone else is like, oh, I love that. Here, let me contribute. Like, and it starts snowballing. Just great support from the community. So I just want to back that up and say I can't get enough of it. I love everything that we've been doing here, and shout out to the community for helping us so much. But yeah, Mike, back to you. I just wanted to back that up.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. So yeah, basically it's got 8 chapters in it, and we start off with stuff about trauma medical services. And so we start off with filling kind of, a lot of this was filling gaps that I saw in the book. They're minor things, but they're things that I wanted to have in there. And so I start off with these medical services. I fill in gaps about, like, how much does it cost to stabilize somebody, or how much does it cost to get somebody to get some speed heal or something like that. And talking about those sorts of more ancillary services, as well as some of the other aspects of trauma, including things about, like, what if you want to save an eye that's been dismembered, or a hand that's dismembered? If you want to save something that's been destroyed, then it's not as easy as just taking it off, putting a new cyber one up. But one of my players is a stickler and doesn't want any cyberware, and so they would want to have, like, their real body parts saved if possible.
Yeah, so let's do this. Let's. I got it here up on the screen now. It's all you and your supplement. You alone with your baby, right here, live in front of everyone. Chat, feel free to ask questions as we go. Oh hell yeah, Rob right there. He's gonna be part of an upcoming team that I'll be streaming. He's also a content creator. Everyone should read his stuff. He says it's a cool supplement. See, people love it, man. Great fucking job. So let's do it. What I'm gonna do is. I'm just going to go page for page. I'm going to scroll down through it. We're on the cover right now. And you just take it chapter for chapter, explaining what it is. Like I said, we'll kind of skip over the more, awesome lore and creative stuff. And we'll get into the more of the useful,
cool.
Crunch and gritty stuff. But yeah, I'll just take it page for page and you can describe it. But yeah, let's go for it. We're here at the introduction and disclaimer. Everyone kind of knows what that sort of stuff is. Explains who you are, and we got the table of contents here. So let's start with the first thing here. We got and acknowledgements. That's great. Shout outs to the community once again. And I saw the thanks to me and the community and all that. Aside from the ones that contributed to this, just extra shout outs. Really appreciate that, man. You're awesome.
Yep, no, I appreciate the community you built, so got to shout out to them,
Hell yeah.
So.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, here we are. Chapter 1 is injuries and medical treatment.
Yeah, so all the chapters kind of start with a story. You guys can go and read them. They are written by players of medtechs in the voice of their medtech. And so you may see some people that you enjoy watching on streams, including some of Rob's. And then we move on into basically, like, trauma services. The big one here is that I kind of felt like we didn't have anything about stabilizing somebody who's injured. Sometimes you get lucky. You don't lose a hand, an arm in the fight, but you do get really hurt. And if nobody's good at tech stuff and nobody has good first aid, then sometimes they can't bandage you up good enough. And so that's what this first table is here.
And what I love that you did here too, not to interrupt, but I want to point out something. You add in these great supplemental rules and ideas and tables and things to expand the gameplay, and then you also give, like, page references for things that you mention in the official, Cyberpunk RED rule book. It's just so easy to use and fluid. It's great.
Oh yeah. I really wanted to have those page numbers in there so that you can go back and you can look at what the rules is written in are, and then you can say, do I want this? Do I want to change it? Mm-hmm. And so yeah, when I'm doing that sort of thing, I try to cite it so what I'm looking at when I'm doing it. And so I have some modifications in there. I have a minimum charge for a trauma team. You can't just call them out for a Band-Aid. They're going to charge you a couple $100 if you call them out for anything. And I have some basic costs for like stabilizing quick fixes, stuff that doesn't really require surgery or anything big. And then kind of moving on to the next section, I hit some additional like kind of ancillary services. So those are going to include other stuff that you might need. Maybe you need cryo pump service. Maybe you need transportation. A lot of that stuff gets wrapped up if you have trauma team, but not every medical service is going to be exactly like trauma team. So this is what you might get hit for if you are doing some sort of piecemeal medical service. And also if you want to get like pharmaceuticals, well, MedTech has to administer them, so they're going to charge pretty good for them. The healing ones are cheaper, but some medtechs, not many, but some of them might give you some stim or some surge right before you go off into battle or something. And they usually charge a hefty price for something like that because it's it's very specialized stuff. And one thing to call out here, it's also in the equipment, is safe dose, which is a system for determining if you can give more pharmaceuticals. Because a lot of these pharmaceuticals say you can only use it once per day, or you can only use it once per week or once per however long. And my big question was like, well, what happens when you do too much? If you take speed heal twice in a row. And we actually will hit that later on in the pharmaceuticals chapter. But safe dose there is intended to check and see is it safe to dose somebody, because people don't tell clinicians like their real history half the time. People don't always disclose.
Yeah, that's very true. That's great.
So, and then moving on from those ancillary services, we come to cryotanks. Registered medtechs are able to use cryotanks at rank 2 of cryo operation, but I looked at that and like, well, why is a business going to let you just come in and use a cryotank for free? Like, they aren't. It's Night City, so there's a charge in there. You gotta pay for it. If you have your own cryotank, well then you have to refill it, kind of like you refill your cryo pump, and you have to keep the cryo fluid or whatever they use in good. So we have that. Moving on a little bit more, we have some critical injury stuff, rules on salvaging dismembered body parts. So if you lose a hand, lose an arm, and you don't want it like cut off and replaced, then you might be able to salvage it. This could also apply to Cyberware. I have a specific additional equipment piece, advanced cybernetics kit that can be used to salvage Cyberware that's been dismembered. So if you got a really nice arm, it might be worth it. Otherwise, it's going to cost. Well, it's going to cost an arm and a leg to get a new cyber arm like that.
Hell yeah.
Some other stuff I have in this chapter is about anesthesia. So, a lot of surgeries are going to require anesthesia. It's not in the book, but, basically if the surgery is fairly difficult, this is mostly for broken limbs, dismembered, things like that, that you need some sort of anesthesia, and if you don't have it, you're going to take a penalty because you're not really operating with the right tools. And there's even some extra stuff in there if you want to kind of do some makeshift anesthesia and slam somebody full of black lace instead of going the proper route. And you can try it; it works sometimes, So we got that.
You can always roll the dice,
Yep. Yep. I mean, I like letting players roll the dice. It might not be good for them, but
hey, that's the game.
And then the last little bit in there is about treating multiple critical injuries. Rules as written says, okay, if you get injured and you have, say, 3 crit injuries and you go into the hospital, we charge you for the most expensive one and we're done. With my players, I charge them for every crit injury. because this stuff is expensive. Don't get yourself blown away like that. Like, so I don't. I'm not nice about that. I'm like, oh, you got 3 crit injuries. All right, that's for this one, this one, this one. Boom, your bill's like $1,500.
I like that. I think, with how Cyberpunk is always deadly. We know that. It's a rough game. Cyberpunk RED especially, like with having to source things, it's more cutthroat. Everybody's elbowing for space. But there's an IP reward system. There's, you get paid for gigs. I mean, your edgerunners can progress. If they're kicking ass, they can progress. And I think it's important, like you said, to kind of put that pressure back. It should always be like intense. And I agree with you. If you have a few critical injuries, like a hospital's not going to say, well, we're just going to charge you for the most expensive one, and then we'll clean up these other ones while we're in there. Like, no, they don't. Hell, fuck no, they don't. Especially not in a dystopian future. If anything, they'll charge you all that plus an additional fee for the extra, hour they had to put in on the clock. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, there'd be something more, I would even think. But hell yeah, good idea. I like it.
Totally. I mean, I looking at medical bills of my own, it's like, yeah, no, they're not that nice in the dystopian future.
Nope, not at all.
I mean, at least they don't send you an extra bill from some random provider you never knew of, 6 months later. So
yeah, PWB in chat says, I'm generous with money, so charging for crit injuries is a great idea. Exactly, I am too. Like, I love rewarding my players above and beyond the typical sometimes. Like, it'll fluctuate, but just as much as I love to reward them, there has to be repercussions for the things that they've done and some stuff to balance some of those rewards. So, like, if they're progressing and think they're kicking ass and things are just intense and diverse and they're role-playing and the agency is flowing, and they're getting rewarded as such, like, fuck yeah, I'm going to throw some extra complicated things in there, just like, like complications in Fallout, so to speak. Like in Cyberpunk, I'll kind of create those sort of moments and things where, like, shit, like, all of a sudden everything just blew up and got burned out, or like they lost this or got robbed here, or something fucked up happens, or like, I love your idea. Like I said, I'll back it up again, like charging for each individual critical injury. Like make those battles serious,
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, it's another tool in your toolbox, right? And so when your players they start getting too much stuff, you go, all right, well, let's get rid of a little bit of that, and then we'll move on, because you don't want them to like gather too much all at once. So,
see if I can get this chat up here. I apologize for moving around the stream thing right here, but I'm just going to line up chat a little bit better. Yeah, go for it.
And Nick's Loon, yes, I endorse charging other players for surgeries. I have actually a couple medtech players in my games, and they do charge other people for surgeries or other treatments. It's just, you got to make your money. But I also charge my med techs. You'll see later on. My med techs, when they stabilize somebody or they do a surgery or they do anything like that, they go through $10 worth of materials. So they got to re-up their kits full of all the bandages and all the sutures they need and everything.
Exactly.
And so they got it. You can't do everything for free.
No, I'll back that up too. I've had teams do that where I've had a med tech in there. One that was contributing to this PDF from one of my old teams, Team Nameless, and then a recent team that I was doing where they would do, like you just suggested, their Nick's Loon 1367 in chat, the one we're referring to for anyone listening that can't watch the VOD or see the chat in the stream. They would charge at a discount, just for like bare minimum, and they would kind of explain it like, oh, just for supplies. I'm not going to charge you for my time. We're teammates, but I got my supplies and things like that, and they would make their money, and then I would charge them a fraction of that to replace things and stuff. It'd be like a discount homie hookup. But yeah, I think you should charge.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And Rob here in chat didn't want to lose this one too. He says one of the best tools in the GM's toolbox is keeping their players broke. Makes them more likely to go out on an adventure. Exactly. Like, you got to keep a little bit of that desperation going, and especially like in Cyberpunk RED or any other type of like sort of dystopian future sort of vibe or post-apocalyptic vibe, any of that sort of stuff. Like, absolutely, the pressure needs to be on. There needs to be a little bit of desperation. It should be motivation for them to like you said, kind of adventure and gig and try to survive.
Yeah, absolutely.
But here,
absolutely.
I'll go on. Say what you're saying. I'm just going to bring back up the PDF.
Yeah, that just you got to have that pressure on them. Otherwise, they won't take the high risk gig or whatever you want to like what
Exactly.
you have ready. And this is cyberpunk, man. Everybody's broke. Even when you have money, boom, next day you could be broke.
Oh yeah.
So, yep. So I love doing that sort of stuff. The next chapter hits some cyberware. So that story is actually by Zach. That's his.
Nice.
That's his Ripper Doc there.
Yep.
But
and then we got
moving down
the table here.
Yep, moving down to the next part. There's some new cyberware. We only got a few pieces. 2 of the 3 there are made by Linda. I renamed her. I renamed the Medimit. I created that name, but she made the item. And so that's really awesome. And the Nova nails, I threw in there. I was like, hey, we have hair, we have tattoos, we have eyes. Like, somebody's going to want some nails. They don't do any damage, but they look nice. And you can, if you want, you can combine them with some of the smaller claw-like things, like rippers or scratchers. And so they can look nice and hurt. But they're nice there. And then that kind of brings us right into the fashion wear, which is the next section, and it's all about extra rules of adapting and customizing your fashion wear. I actually picked up a chunk of this from Rob with some of the people going, hey, I'm going to change the color of my tech hair, and I'm going to I have chem skin, so I should maybe make myself look a little different and things like that. And so I started thinking about, well, what can we do? You can't be edge running and sneaking into a place with glowing hair and glowing tattoos all over. So you got to be able to turn them off.
Oh yeah. And sometimes you want to
but
blend into a crowd, and you might want to change up your look a little bit. You broke into a place wearing all black hair and darker skin, darker eyes, and all that, and then maybe you want to blend into a club scene real quick. All of a sudden, get all neon and light colors, and just completely change up the fit in. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And sometimes people have different choices on chem skin. I have a player that went with camouflage chem skin, that's what his normal look is, and then sometimes he'll turn it off or whatever, but that's his normal. He's solo, obviously, but yeah, so we have stuff like that to kind of help let you be a little bit more flexible if you want, let your players kind of play around a little bit more, and reward some of that creativity there. Moving on into Cyberware installation, this was actually a part that really kind of bothered me with the book, and I know why R. Talsorian built it the way they did, and it's really very much on their very simplified cost system, which I really like. I love that the cost categories are simple, you can remember them. It's super easy to memorize them and know what stuff is, but it had some weird side effects, and one of those I noticed was the installation price of Cyberware. A Cyber Eye will cost you $100 and you can get it installed. But you find a Cyber Eye and you want to get it installed, it's going to cost you $500 to get that thing installed. Well, that doesn't make any sense. I brought the Cyber Eye to you, you're going to charge me 5 times the price of buying it new,
Right.
So I adjusted those prices so they're kind of a percent of the base price. And I kind of also offered some extra surgery times. I felt 4 hours, nice and simple. I like the straightforward approach from Martel Sorian, but sometimes I want to add a little bit more. And so I shifted it so you can go get that mall installation, that fashion wear or whatever done on your lunch hour. It only takes an hour to get that stuff in, but it might take 8 hours to get your linear frame implanted. Because some of those things are they're harder.
Oh yeah, definitely. I like that adjustment, and I agree with you. I think it gets a little bit sticky with that. I understand that they wanted to tone down the whole 2020 aspect, where everybody was out there killing as an edge runner team, and you're just hacking off limbs and going and dragging bodies into Ripper docks and making money on the side, and it was just kind of a little bit dark, a little bit gruesome, and slightly unrealistic to how much that tended to happen back in those days when playing with teams, and stuff. At least ones I've seen and played with and have run or been part of. And I think they wanted to kind of make it in the future, it's not really worth much. We can clone our own things here and that. But with the cyberware, I agree. I think it gets sticky, like especially if you have a med tech that can take the time and remove it from a body so it doesn't get damaged. But like if you hack one off, then you got to like pay a tech to fix it, to even get it to go install it. Then you got to go and, like you said, pay more to have it installed. It just doesn't make sense. So I like that, streamlining that a little bit, making it a little more realistic, a little more cost effective, so like you can still be jacking things off the bodies that you're accumulating, so to speak, and making it worth it, if you're gonna take some cyberware.
Totally. And also part of the impetus was one of my teams has a tech and a med tech. The tech's like, hey, I can fabricate this stuff. The med tech's like, I can install it. Then we look at the prices, we're like, that doesn't even make sense.
Right.
So, I wanted to fix some of that stuff. I see in the chat.
That's a great point there, too, like the whole fabricating, like making something that already exists, using that tech skill for the cost of materials, and then the medtech installing it. And it should be way cheaper.
Yeah.
But yeah, go on here. Let me bring it back up before we deep dive on just one thing. But yeah, you've got the cyberware installation table here, and expanded on those prices, making it a percentage of the base. And then I guess we can move on to the next.
So the next table is really just built off this one, and it takes the tech's fabricating ability, figures out the prices for materials to build cyberware, takes the cyberware's base takes the base cost, tells you how much the materials will cost, and then how much installation will cost for the different levels: mall, clinic, hospital, and then you can see what the profit margin is. And the profit margin is going to be split between the tech and the med tech, the one fabricating, the one installing, but that's the total amount of money that could be made off of the given item. And so that kind of just breaks it down, so you can kind of see, one, that this actually works, that you could make a business out of this, and two, that it helps you kind of look at it and decide how to run it, if you want to run it in your game, or if you want to adjust these prices, go for it. It's your game. And then you'll see some of the sweet spots, like those $500 items. That's actually where you make good money. Because you make almost 50% profit on those things, whereas going off to the $100 items, those don't make a whole lot of money. You get some lunch money out of that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, just starting with materials to fabricate alone, it's like 50% the base cost versus a 20% base cost. So yeah, I see what you're saying. There's some sweet spots. I love it. I love the intricacies and the little dynamics built within it, let alone the fact that you've added it in to kind of give this aspect to the game in general. Great. I love it.
Yep. And also I want to call out to chat really quick, Nick's Loon. Yes, you can set your biomonitor to contact, emergency contact. I put that in there. So it's not just Trauma Team. A lot of people may hook it up to Trauma Team, but it could be a different medical service. It could be your buddy that always drags your butt out of bad situations. It could be your fixer, for all you know. It could be your mom that you want to call if you're dying. It's whatever you want. Because you got to program those things. So I figured, why not? You can put it on whatever number you want to have a call.
Oh yeah, I love it.
I mean, hell, a tech could probably, or a netrunner could probably figure out how to make it post to your garden space or something.
Yeah.
Live update, dying right now. Check out my vitals.
That would be great for a rocker. In sticky situations, it instantly blasts out to the garden page, hitting all the fans. So then you can have them do a charismatic impact check to see if any fans come to rescue or donate or do something to help.
That would be clever.
Yeah, clever little ideas there for a rocker medtech net running team. So you got to be creative. I love this sort of stuff. This is why I love deep dives, and I do it for each role because we get creative like that for each role, different ways to play him and be creative with it. But what I'm finding interesting now with the fact that we've kind of done this deep dive on this supplement is that it's kind of we're deep diving the medicine and all the great things with that, but it's allowing us to kind of deep dive multiple roles and teams and ways to use this stuff that you created now in creative ways, within a team. And it can be a lot of fun. I almost want to start playing now a little more than just GMing, just so I can start fucking with this stuff, this creative thing. All right, back to the PDF. All right, here we go.
Yep. So, the next section is discount cyberware. this is one of those great things I love to offer the players the yes, but. So man, I don't have enough money to buy this new cyber arm with all these things I want. What can I do? Well, you can buy from the discount rack. It's 75% the full cost, so you get 25% off on this. But you gotta roll and see what happens. Good chance that it's nothing permanent, but it could be. You might roll really bad if you roll 2d6 and you get whatever slot you get on there. You have to install it first too. You can't go and check it out. If a tech could just look at it and say it's good or bad, it wouldn't be on the shelf. So and it's at GM's discretion. They can decide what's available. It's not always like just anything you want, and it may come with like attachments or whatever, slots already taken up that you have to buy with it. It's GM's call. But you roll really bad and you get like a 2, your stuff might be foobar. It might be like you have to pull it out and you guys have to like go and just it's garbage. Like a tech could fix it if they wanted to go rebuild it. You might get something that's glitchy, and whenever you get a crit fail, then it starts glitching out and it starts to fail on you.
I love that.
So that one could be fun. It might just be that it's an outdated model. It costs a little extra humanity, or it looks bad. Or sometimes you find a gem in there. You roll 12 on it, and bam, you got something. It's got extras in it. It's upgraded somehow. GM decides what, but you got some. You got something at low price, and you got benefits.
Yeah, we might have to. I love the PWB there in chat. We might have to add in that. Let me make sure it comes up there on the stream so other people can see it as well. But 1 slot stuffed with chewed bubble gum.
Awesome.
I love that idea.
Yep. So, and if you want to like take that table and you want to modify something, or you want to like write out ideas, like by all means. I had 100 different ideas for a lot of those little spots and what we could do with them and how it could be, and then eventually I'm just like, there's too much here. I'm just going to say it's GM's discretion on how you want to play this thing out.
Yeah. Sometimes that's best. I did that weather table long ago, which is on the site. People can use it. And I started getting into like modifiers and things. And I was like, fuck, man, if I really dive into this, like it's going to be paragraph on each one, when really I wanted it to be like a 1-page little roll some dice and boom, you got your little quick answer. So then I put just a handful of little modifiers, and then at the top I'm like, GM discretion, add some fucking modifiers in there and stuff, like, because I'm with you. Like if I start thinking about it, I'll think of 100 different ways to do it. I'll start writing it out. Then each little number will be its own page, and like fuck that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so I condensed it down. I'm like, okay, these are going to be like certain types of modifiers or effects that you might have. And you can kind of roll with it. So that pretty much wraps up like chapter 2, and then we kind of move on into chapter 3, which is about therapy. And so little bits of this are stuff that's mentioned in the book originally, but then I go and I start expanding on some of this. So in the rules it's written, there's addiction therapy, but it only cures one addiction. Well, if you say watch Cyberpunk goes nomad, then you know that Chuggy's over there with like 5 addictions or whatever, and grabbing every chem he can find. So this is the extreme addiction therapy. It cures all of them all in one fell swoop, but it costs a lot. And then I have some other ones. I have an experimental rapid detox. So you can't wait a week. You got 2 days and you got to kick this thing. Well, you can do it with the experimental rapid detox. It's still experimental. It involves taking stardust, which is a really strong hallucinogen, and lust, which is a hypnotic kind of mind control drug, and they kind of convince you not to use that drug anymore. But it's got its own risks in there, and you can play it how you want. The company I have kind of behind it in my head is a little shady, and you might come out with a little extra programming when you're done with that sort of thing. So you got to watch out. And then I got the old school going cold kibble. Like, you got to just kick it. I'm just not going to use it. It's hard to do that. I mean, anybody who's known anybody who's had drug problems, like, it's not easy, but I wanted to have something in there for people because people do it. And so you got to go clean for 7 days, but that's not a simple task sometimes. And your friends can help you out. Sometimes they can convince you to not use, and sometimes it's more of them just sitting on top of you when you're trying to go get something, you know. So, yeah. Moving down from there, we get into the humanity loss therapies. Or actually, we hit the table first because that's how the layout ended up being. Which I summarize everything. It's set up like the tables in the book, or the table in the book. I don't remember which page it's on. Probably 230. It's set up the same thing.
229 to 230 full details. See, you put that right there in the supplement. Yep. Easy to. Easy to get it. See.
That was.
Whoever made this was smart, man. They trouble. Yeah, that dude Tracy's pretty good. That Stinkpalm dude, he's pretty cool.
Yeah. Glad he was thinking ahead.
Yeah, he was looking out for you.
But yeah. So I mean, I got set up like that, so you have a quick reference, and then like you can go look at each section to see the details on some of these new ones. And I have the cost in there. I'm quite proud of my cost for the cold kibble, which is free, poor AF. So
yeah, I like that.
There's that. Moving down from there, we end up at the experimental humanity loss therapy. This is actually what this is a method of kind of doing humanity loss therapy, but not with the standard, Biotechnica drugs. So in this case, basically involves doing a ton of blue glass while somebody guides you through a massive hallucinogenic journey. If it turns out right, then you might be able to work through a bunch of issues. If it turns out wrong, well, you might not work through the issues, and you could become hooked on blue glass. So, it's got a risk in there. But you know what? If you're med tech sitting there and like, I don't know how to make those drugs, and I don't know how to, those drugs are expensive to go do the real therapy. Well, then, getting yourself, a couple $100 of blue glass is a lot cheaper.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's like the cyberpunk version of ayahuasca or whatever, like people doing, like crazy natural trips for therapy and stuff. No, I love that. That's great.
Exactly. That's what I was kind of thinking of.
Yeah, totally.
Then we get into the pharmaceuticals stuff. The story here actually is my medtech here at the top of this chapter, Knackerman. He's kind of hard to understand, so it's best not to try usually. He only speaks in street slang. But so the pharmaceuticals, the first major section here is the misuse of medtech pharmaceuticals, and that got me into I got into this whole question. One of my medtechs got pickpocketed by some kids, and I rolled randomly what the hell they gonna steal, and it turned out to be some of his pharmaceuticals. And I'm like, well, what happens if these kids just use this stuff? So
rules is written on this. Things like this has to be, administered by medtech.
Yep. Yeah, rules.
But you're right.
Only medtechs can administer it.
Yeah, but they never dive into but what if? And absolutely that's gonna fucking happen. So I love this. Keep going.
Totally. Yeah. So I tweeted at our Talsorian, and I'm like, hey, what's with this? They suggested, hey, maybe you could treat it like poison. And I'm like, all right, that's a good start, but it's not quite where I want to get. And so I actually have it set up in here so that so if you use a pharmaceutical more than you're supposed to, you take speed heal once in the day, and then 6 hours later you're like, no, I'm just going to use some more speed heal, then you're overdosing it, and it's gonna be treated like a biotoxin. That's a roll resist drug torture, or take 3d6 damage straight to your health, and it's harsh. But if you're trying to dose somebody and you don't know what you're doing, what it is it's two luck rolls. One luck roll for the person measuring the dose, and one luck roll for the person receiving the medicine. It's total luck as to whether that's the right amount that's in the dosage and the right amount for your body. And it's two luck rolls, and the way it works out, even the luckiest people, 8 luck, they got a in the end, they got a 70% chance of hitting each of those rolls, but they have to make two of them. It's only 49% chance of actually getting the right effect out of it. So your luckiest person's got a coin flip, um, and everybody else goes downhill from there. So your med tech goes down, but he's got something on him that might help him. Well, you can take the risk, but it's going to be a risk. Yeah. Then, kind of moving on from the misuse of medtech pharmaceuticals, I start going into some extra pharmaceuticals. So, some of these are things that aren't necessarily named in the book, but are essentially referenced. So, I created names for the addiction drugs, standard humanity loss drugs, extreme humanity loss drugs. And so that's where we get Crave Away for addictions, empatherapy for standard humanity loss, and Humagain for extreme humanity loss. But then I started kind of thinking about some other things, and to me, I feel like medtechs can do a little bit more with the synthesizing drugs than just the couple of pharmaceuticals that they have in there. So I added in poison and biotoxin. They can learn how to synthesize because they already have Rabitox in the book, which takes away a poison or whatever, right? It cleans out the system. So I added poison and biotoxins in there. And I also added a couple other ones for some of the, like for my extreme addiction therapy. I added sobriodine for that one. And I have a sleeping drug, Turbo Torpor, which is basically got the same effects as sleep ammunition, like sleep grenades and stuff. But it's, a medtech can synthesize it. And then I added in this like little mechanic thing where some of these build off each other. So you can't just go, oh, why would I ever take a standard humanity loss drug when I can do extreme? If I'm a medtech, I just go all the way. Well, you have to take some of these to build up. So you can take the standard humanity loss empatherapy as a pharmaceutical, but in order to take Humagain, the extreme humanity loss, you got to go and have taken the prior one. And so there's kind of a chain there. In order to get the addiction drugs, you have to learn how to make Rabitox first. You have to be able to synthesize that. And then they also kind of build on each other in that it takes 2 doses of the prior one to make a batch of a new one. So if you make Rabitox, you got to make 2. You got to make Rabitox, have 2 doses of that. Then you can go and make Crave Away with that. And it costs some of the extra money. So it's because it's a more expensive drug. It's valuable, right? And so then you can go and try to make your Crave Away. And then if you want to get the extreme one, the sobriodine, well, then you got to take 2 doses of your Crave Away, use that to build your sobriodine, plus a little extra money in there. So they kind of build off each other. Biotoxins and poisons work kind of the same way. And it also kind of explains why some of these therapists, they specialize, An addiction therapist, like, no, this is what I do because I know how to make all the drugs that go into this side of therapy. And, somebody who does humanity loss therapy might be specialized that way. And somebody who does both might only offer the most basic versions of the therapies, because you gotta learn a lot of stuff to do it. So
yeah, now we got street drugs is the next after that. And that's one thing I love about that chart. And just so chat knows, like, again, I'm putting the link there in chat. I'm going to put it in the description. It's going to be in the VOD so everyone can go download this. We're just kind of touching like you see these charts, there's a bunch of different things that he's created here, and I kind of scroll through so you can see it here on the stream. But he's just describing a couple of the things on each one, just so we can, get through this and kind of deep dive each section and explain it. But yeah, absolutely download it for yourself so you can see all the details, all the options, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's tons of stuff in there. So
exactly, yeah. I just wanted to explain that because, like, I'm sure some people are seeing the chart there with a bunch of things, and you're kind of cliff noting it for them. Otherwise, this stream might take a few hours, you know what I mean, or like a handful of hours to truly like explain every little thing for people, because you've created some awesome stuff here. So again, people should download it and really dive in.
Yeah, I could ramble on about this for quite a while. So.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So we go into we made some extra street drugs. For me, this started with caffeine. I'm like, there's no caffeine in here, man. Like, the world runs on this shit. Like, so, and that was before they put out the cough pops. I had written this up, and then they put out cough pops. So I'm like, I got to go update. And so, I put out caffeine to kind of take away some of your fatigue penalties. And this like not just a little bit of caffeine. It's like 4 cups of coffee in an hour, or like a couple of energy drinks in like 1 hour. Like, you got to really be going at it. And if your player drinks a lot of coffee, then don't mess with this. And it's when you're going above and beyond. You're really like trying to use your caffeine to keep you up, or like feel fresh for a little bit. But it bites you in the butt. Everybody's had a caffeine crash. And then we got some other drugs. Flicker. That's a strong stimulant that keeps you up for a very long time. It's highly addictive. Unlike other drugs where it says, the GM may tell you once in a while that you're craving this drug. No, this drug lasts 8 hours, but after 6 hours, you start craving it again. So before you're done with it, it's already like on you, trying to get you to do more. So it's highly addictive. But if you want to stay up for 2 days straight, well, then it's an option. Not a good one, but it's an option. Zach actually came up with the Heisenberg sauce, which you can check out in Nomad Go Cyberpunk, or Cyberpunk Go Nomad. But it gives you some luck, but it's also pretty addictive, and it doesn't last too long, so you're just always kind of going after it. The Bundy bars also came from Capricious Nature, who offered this up, and so they can really kind of give you some boost. But they're kind of a devil's trap. Like they're gonna get you. Lust. This one was actually made by Raven, who in the Discord plays on the Nomad campaign, and this one is kind of a mind control drug. You can give it to people, and they become very susceptible to being commanded around. And so you can use it to control people. This one of the big problems is if you get hooked on it, then you no longer get the normal effects from it, and they are very uncontrollable. They lose control of their own ability to regulate their mood and their emotions, and so you basically defeat the whole purpose of it. So we got some Molly in here for people who want to go out and party and hang out and connect. No Cyberpunk would be complete without Novocaine. So that's the vibrant green smokable substance. And I love the description on this one. My wife came up with it. It says it's a vibrant green powder that can be smoked, vaped, or ingested. The green is probably meant to simulate plant material, but nothing living has ever had quite that shade of green.
Yeah.
It's a very cyberpunky to me because, all those fake products, they look kind of like it should. And Stardust. Stardust is a hallucinogen, but its primary thing is really it takes away pain, and it's really potent. It's more potent than like black lace. It goes to the point where you gain some hit points and you actually can be like survive some extra stuff, but GM no longer tells you when you're hit. they track your hit points. They don't even tell you when you take a crit hit unless you roll perception to notice your own crits. And if you go to use like an arm that you just lost and you're on this stuff, you just lose your action for the turn, and then the GM tells you, "Oh, you lost your arm." Like, so you can use it, but it's got its risks in there. But it will effectively give you 2 extra points of body, raising you above 8 and increasing your HP. So, but those also get taken away when you come down. So there's like a bunch of street drugs in there that are
Oh, we
cool,
just covered all of them.
Yep.
That was awesome. But I wanted to pause for a minute because I wanted, before we get past that or into that, Nick's had a question prior to that, saying about the pharmaceuticals used solely for therapy. The section before, asking the Humagane, Crave Away, and Sobriadine or Dine, could they could they be used outside of therapy, or is that their sole purpose? And I mean, their sole purpose is for those therapeutic reasons. So I imagine, but is the question, you have to use them while getting therapy from like a therapist, like a med tech? Is that your question? I'm not sure.
So you do have to have a therapist, and you're using it in conjunction with therapy. It's set up to kind of reflect how the book was treating therapy, and so that's how I had that envisioned.
Yeah, that's funny. That's exactly, Nick's just put in the chat there. Here, I'll bring it up. That way it comes up in the stream too. Let's make sure it updates. 1 second. It looks like my video might be frozen there. But yeah, Nick said essentially, yeah. So that's exactly what they were asking. Hey, Raven's there. Hi, you chooms. But yeah, it's funny. That's exactly what you answered. So yeah, it has to be in therapy with a therapist.
Yeah. So you pose an interesting question. I'll think about it with the next update. What happens if you take it and you're not in therapy? Right? Okay. Is there something that happens? I don't know.
Yeah, and it's funny. Nick's just put that in chat as well. I was wondering more if these drugs add a benefit to the therapy or if they're simply supplemental.
Yeah. So the way the book treats the therapy is that these drugs are necessary for therapy, right? They don't really have like a classic like talk therapy or anything like that, like what we would get nowadays. It's all pharmaceutical based, but it's also like it helps you in like a week. I mean, anybody who's been in therapy knows that's like a pipe dream there. So like it's really fast, but you got to use these drugs, and that's how they designed it. So I wanted to mimic their same structure because it's easier to integrate, homebrew when you kind of mimic the structures that they produce in the original. Less balance issues, less to worry about when you're doing that. But I think you ask a really interesting question. Like, I'll think about what happens if you take it and you're not in therapy. And maybe I should think about for the next update what if there's an option for therapy that isn't pharmaceutical based, right? Can you go in and do a non-drug based therapy? Those would be good questions to kind of think about, and that sort of thing. Yes, the cost of materials, Nick Sloan, is in the purchasing of like the drugs. So like if you look at the book on page 230, it has like the cost of the drugs, the cost of the therapy in one column, and then it's got like the med tech DV, and in there it has materials are like 500 eddies and things like that. And so that's kind of what I'm mimicking there, is that same sort of situation. And but that's the cost to buy it like produced. Somebody made this for you. Now I'm going to take it and go do the therapy. Now, if you take it as your medtech pharmaceuticals, well, then you're going to go flip over to the new pharmaceutical section and look at the rules in there, and you produce it yourself according to that. I made sure that those would be economical. So you're not going to act like, in general, you shouldn't spend more money trying to make the drug than it costs for you to go buy it. Right. Now, there's a role involved in making pharmaceuticals. So if you got really bad luck, then I guess sometimes it might. But Um, you know, uh, it's not that hard to roll. It's like a DV13 or something to make pharmaceuticals. So, um, yeah, it's designed. It should be economical, even with the pyramid type scheme that I have, where you have to use some doses of the prior ones to make the more advanced ones with some of these therapy things. Um, that's because like some of these drugs are like $500 or $1,000 or something just on their own. So I wanted to make sure that that was kind of addressed in the process.
Oh yeah. No, and then that brings us to the next section, which is medical uses of street drugs, and then it has the list of all these street drugs here.
Yep. So
Yeah, go ahead.
So I have some just various like uses that you can use street drugs for. So I'm referencing some of the therapies that I had beforehand or anesthesia, and some of it's just there for flavor. Synth coke, well, in real life, cocaine is used in emergency rooms. They're used for asthma attacks and some other things sometimes. And so, because it opens up the lungs, bam, And so I have some of that sort of flavor in there, as well as kind of referencing to some of the other sections where I'm mentioning these things. So it's kind of all grouped together if you want to see some of these off-brand, off-label uses. And then I think the last section in this chapter is on synthesizing street drugs. And this is kind of my own personal thing. So the Artel Sorian put out, one of their FAQs, and they explained that you use techs can fabricate street drugs, and they can fabricate poisons, biotoxins, and basically they had them using basic tech because their definition is basic tech covers everything that's not covered by the other stuff. And so by their definitions, their rules, this makes sense. It's simple. It keeps things consistent. It just didn't sit well with me. And so I shift this over to using some of the science skills. So you can use like chemistry and biochemistry, things like that to make your street drugs or your poisons, biotoxins, those sorts of things. And so I kind of shift that over. And then also I add in this little caveat. This is something that I think is cool, but it's your table if you'd want to or not. But I let medtechs synthesize street drugs. I mean, they're already making pharmaceuticals, so I let them synthesize. It's the one area where they kind of get that tech fabricate power, and it's treated just like a tech doing fabricate. With the big difference is normally when you're doing fabricate, you're using your fabricate skill, the points you have in fabrication expertise. And here, I flip it out for your medical tech skill, which is what medtechs use to make their pharmaceuticals. So I just kind of flip out one of the skills in there, and say, all right, you can go for it.
Oh, yeah, like PWB says, perhaps basic tech is a good stat to use, but there is a chance of contamination. Maybe like a contamination infection sort of thing happens or something, yeah.
Yep. So yeah, that could definitely be a good way to play it.
It could contaminate it and then maybe lead. If it's still used or something goes past that, it could cause some type of infection or, What was that drug going on in Russia years ago that was giving people crocodile? They called it
crocodile or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like
nasty shit.
Yeah, it's fucking up people's skin and stuff. So see, like maybe you could implement some weird side effect. But no, great point to make. PWB like that. Hell yeah.
That'd be a great way to deal with it. So, like I said, your table, your rules. These are some options for people to use.
Yeah.
The next few pages are actually a interview. Simon, the Wandering DM, wrote up an interview with Dr. Carver that he has in a number of his streams. It's pretty good. Check it out. He talks about his own issues with addiction.
Yeah, and like I said for chat, download this, get into the details. We're already we've passed the halfway mark, and we're only halfway through this PDF, so we've got to streamline. So we're gonna skip the lore stuff, the fun stuff. We're just gonna cliff notes the different sections so we can get through this. So chat, please, definitely download it, dive in. There's so much good stuff in here. But yeah, let's keep it moving.
Yep. All right, so then we get kind of into the chapter on addiction. It just looked like a need that was like not quite being covered, and so I wanted to get into that. But
Hell yeah.
I start off with the safety concerns. Talk to your table. Some tables don't want to go into this; they want it veiled. Some have lines, and they're like, no, we don't want addiction at the table. It's too heavy. I in my approach to this, I wanted to be as respectful as I can to everybody. So if by some chance I offend anybody that hears me and reads this, just send me a message. Talk to me. Like, seriously, we'll fix it up. This topic is close to my heart, and so I understand that people, might take something I said wrong, or they might find something I said offensive. You know, I tried to clean up the language and try to make it as respectful as I can.
Yeah,
But
and I should add too, we are Cybernation Uncensored. We try to, you know, put everything out there, not tone down too much, but like Stinkpalm mentioned, there's lines and veils with gameplay and in any type of content. So if there's something that truly bothers you, offends you, or rubs you the wrong way, or you think isn't the right way to portray something or whatever, in anything we do, from streams to tutorials to things like this, absolutely shoot us a message. Be communicative. That's the way to evolve things and be inclusive and cover all bases and make sure things can keep moving forward. So feel free to message any of us about anything that we all create, keeping in mind that when we create it, it's never to offend or anything. We try to put things out there to cover everything, and just supply all that and say, you make your own lines and veils. Like this supplement, I think it's great that you've provided all this because it wasn't provided. So now if somebody does want to cover that stuff, they can dive in and you've provided options and ways to make it work. If it is something that's offensive, somebody doesn't want to use, they can skip that chapter. They don't need to do it. It's within their lines, veils, or whatever. They've worked that out in their session 0. But I think it's great that you've provided it. It's an option. But again, if there's any details that bother people, hit us up anytime. And like Stinkpalm said, just message him. So I love that you said that. So let's dive back in.
all right. So the first part of this chapter is on secondary effects, and basically I messaged Artel Sorian on Twitter. I've done this a few times, and I was asking about rapid talks. And one of the things they kind of revealed to me is that the way rules are as written, when you take a street drug, after the duration ends, then the effects wear off and you roll the secondary effect, which can include addiction, right? So by their definition, if you take rapid talks before the duration's over on a drug, you never roll secondary effects. You cannot become addicted if you use rapid talks to clean yourself before the drug's done. It's an expensive way to deal with it, but it's a way to deal with it. And so I have that in there because they kind of clarified that for me, and that was a really interesting point that they made with their rules. Next, the rest of this kind of gets into the kind of how, as a game master, would I work with addiction? And so I talk about the urge to use drugs. That's very strong. This is more than a desire. I've had conversations with people that I know that had drug problems, and they've described it as like, it's not like a desire. It's not like a need to eat food. It's like the need to breathe. That if I don't get it right now, that I will die right now. Like, it is just so overwhelmingly powerful. And so that's what I'm kind of describing there, is that this is powerful, that you have to mechanically, you may have to make rolls to resist the urge to try to get more drugs. But also I mentioned that like GMs can take over characters temporarily if you're not really playing it and they really like telling you should be doing this. Don't take them the first time or whatever, but give your player a chance to play. But if they seem to be just kind of ignoring it, then yeah, the GMs can take over, and then
I think
just
it's
be like,
important nudge that urge first, and then absolutely take over. I think it's also I cover something similar in the cyberpsychosis thing. It's important, like when you get down to that empathy of like 3, and then you kind of mentioned the players in 2. All right, you need to start role playing that out. You kind of nudge that a little, and then if they're not, absolutely take over. All of a sudden, like the player, like you blacked out. Everyone wakes up to meet the next day, except your player has blood on their hands. They don't know what the hell they did last night, and like that sort of cyberpsychosis thing. I think that with this too, like if they're not leaning in and role playing the urge, and you nudge them and they're still not, then yeah, take over. throw some role play in there to make that happen. But no, I love that. And then the next section here is the tolerance. Let's see, let's
Yep.
bring that up.
So there's tolerance, and that's a classic thing in addiction.
Yeah,
Basically, if you're
recovery.
using longer, then you're going to have a higher tolerance, and it's going to take more doses to count. And at that point, like if you don't take enough doses of whatever for your tolerance level, then it doesn't count as satisfying your urge. It doesn't have the primary effects. Like it doesn't work. It's just not enough. Um, Moving on from that, it's just a quick note about addiction treatment in reference to the prior chapter on treatments, um, because I'm kind of covering this whole like stages of addiction. Then we get to recovery, and basically part of this coming from the core book that it's a year of um, of not using the drug, the recovery period, that during that period, if you do use, you automatically fail for secondary effects. So, you should stay away from that. And then I just I'm kind of detailing that sort of aspect there. And, you know, that sort of thing. And I mean, one thing that I want to mention, I didn't mention back in the treatment therapy section, but I never talk about curing an addiction. It's a purposeful thing. I talk about removing the secondary effects because we're talking about the mechanics, and like in terms of medical, you don't actually cure an addiction. There is no cure. We can manage it. And so, and you can be, in recovery and that sort of thing. So I try to line up with that sort of thought process. Um, then moving on, it's just a quick blip on Smash and alcohol, and that basically I think it's a little harsh to make people roll for addiction if they have one drink. So I set a limit at 3. Once you have 3,
That's
then
what I
like
do in my
I have the
gameplay
effects.
too.
Yeah, 1 drink, 2 drinks, cool. No effects, no problems, nothing. But you go further than effects. You might set your limit at different places. It's your choice, but you know,
Sometimes I'll
um,
ask the players, like what I did with my Sirenscape weekly stream, early on, when they first went out to a bar in like session 1 or wherever they were, asking like, oh, do you normally drink? And I'll just casually throw that in as they're drinking. But in my mind, it lets me know, like, am I going to have them roll in that addiction? Is it going to come into play? Or can they go out and casually have 1 to 3 drinks before they really start feeling a buzz and then have to roll? You know what I mean? But I'll casually ask them, let them kind of describe their character and how they normally go out and do stuff, not knowing that it's actually going to play into that outcome. But no, I think that's a great point to make. Good point. But yeah, chapter 6.
so
Yeah,
chapter
medical
6
treatment.
is a ton of equipment. The
Yeah.
story there's actually from is
Oh,
a
thanks,
story
sir.
by med tech that's one of my kids, who's actually a veterinarian. The character is a veterinarian.
Nice.
Um, so, but there's a ton of equipment in here. You really kind of have to dig through it. Couple things I'd like to highlight is the biosynthesizer. They talk about being able to get organic replacement body parts. This is where you get it. You can buy one. You can set it up in your place, and you can make yourself new hands, new arms. It's also where you're going to make your big old elf ears, or if you need fur, and you want a wolf snout, whatever it is. This is where you're going to be growing it. So if you're doing exotic body sculpting, or if you're doing replacement body parts or things like that, this is what you want. My veterinarian med tech player is actually rehabbing a cyber dog that went a little psycho, and the character's removing all the cyberware and then replacing the body parts with organic ones, and giving the dog therapy. So like you can use it how you want. Um, some of the other stuff is just real simple stuff that gets added: disposable gloves, great for not leaving fingerprints, first aid kit. They let you do stabilization quick fixes, and then life support system. That's the surgeon's answer to a cryo bag. It's not armored or anything, but it serves the same purpose to keep somebody alive when they're on the table. Um, Medimits. So these are cool, made by Linda. So I'll shout this one out for sure. They come in cybernetic or non. This is the Medimit EZ, which is non-cybernetic, and it's basically like a medtech kit in your hand. It only has like 2 uses worth of extra materials, consumable materials like bandages, sutures, whatever. But it flips like it's kind of based on Vic's hand thing in Cyberpunk 2077, kind of loosely like modeled off that. But it's got like your scalpels flip out and your like suture needles can
Nice.
flip out and they can kind of like open up and everything, and when you're all done it can like kind of all splay apart so you can wash it out real good, you know, and that sort of thing. And so you can get it as a mitt that like goes over your hand, or you can get it cybernetic, takes 2 option slots. And so that's the Medimit Pro is the cybernetic, Medimit EZ is your hand piece. So that's one thing. Another thing that I kind of want to mention is medtech bags. I have some extra rules here in that, like I say that like half your bag's actually consumable stuff that needs restocked. Each use of stabilize or surgery or whatever is basically $10 worth of materials, and so you can get more and you can restock your thing. And also, I just give my med techs an actual backpack, a carry-all with or bag with their med tech bag, like, and I let them put extra stuff in it. So I say that the normal stuff fills up about a third of it. Your cryo pump will fill up about another third of it. You can shove other stuff in the rest of it. So I kind of do that whole thing. Let's see. I mentioned safe dose earlier, which is to test and make sure you're safe to give doses of pharmaceuticals so it doesn't kill people. Surgeon View, this one was cool. I came up with this one after tweeting it. Artel Sorian again. So you can see a habit here. Basically, I was like, hey, Med Scanner helps with paramedic. It helps with first aid. What helps with surgery? And they're like, well, we don't have anything, but it's probably a lot larger, a lot more expensive. And so that's what I have. I have Surgeon View. It basically is like three internal viewing camera things, that scan you like a kind of CT scan or a X-ray, but it's these soft tissue, the whole thing. And they're kind of put in different sides, and then you have these monitors. They can let you see kind of a 3-dimensional view inside the person. And so while you're doing your surgery, you can kind of like work through them. It gives you a bonus to surgery.
Nice.
And it's expensive as crap.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that's some of the equipment. Dig in there, check out all the equipment. There's a bunch of stuff in there that's fun, useful, etc. Chapter 7. This one, I really like this chapter. I put a lot of thought into this. It could come across as dry to some people, but I think it's going to be a great use for GMs and players. Basically, I go through a ton of skills, and I'm like, this is how a medtech could use this. Medtechs need lots of skills, and it's not just like the ones you think of. Yeah, deduction is for diagnosing people, so you definitely need that. Yeah, you definitely need paramedic. One thing to note for everybody out there, paramedic does everything that first aid does and more. If you have a medtech, don't take first aid. Don't max that thing out. Max out paramedic, because that'll give you so much more. And the first aid, those extra points of first aid are a waste.
Yeah, I like that. No, and I think it makes a lot of sense too. Like, just to touch on a couple, because maybe just mention a couple of these, but like as an example, like with brawling, you will have to restrain a patient, administer amnesia or something to someone that doesn't want it. I like how you've done with criminology, identifying the cause of death, fake cause of death, bedside manner, cyber tech. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing to note with cyber tech is there's no clear mention of what DV to use. A lot of crit injuries have multiple DVs depending on the skill being used, but cyber tech's not in there. And so my house rule is that you use the highest possible DV that's on the list, because cyber tech's only a ×1 skill, paramedics ×2. Surgery is a roll ability only, so it's it's the lowest level skill, so it should have the highest DVs. Yeah, we got cybertech. Other things that you might not think of: evasion. My medtech vet's pretty good at evasion because you don't want to get bit by a dog you're treating. So
Right.
but people get confused. They take swings at the doctors. It happens. But I have a bunch of the stuff in here. A bunch of uses for a medical tech skill. Like that's a med tech only skill, and there's a bunch of uses for that. There's chunks of these are mentioned in the book, and so I have those mentioned. But also things like, if you want to try to fake a cadaver, you need to know what test you're faking out. Or if you want to run these tests, you need to know what you're doing. So I have like tons of stuff in there. Paint, draw, sculpt. You probably didn't think your med tech needed that, but you do sometimes. You want to do exotic body sculpting, you got to be half artist. Like that's just how it is. Or if you want to make somebody look exactly like somebody else, you got to have that artist touch to it.
Yeah, and I like that you put
Um,
in there one thing I do all the time. I mean, in the main rule book, you see it with like net running, right? They'll, ooh, am I frozen again there? Let me try to get me back to normal here. Now I'm moving again. No, in net running, a net runner will make a cloak. They'll do their interface roll that'll kind of set the DV that later on is contested to see if you can break the cloak, and vice versa. If they're in, they do Pathfinder. If it's high enough to kind of break the cloak, they can see it's there, get in, and another to beat the DV of the virus that was created. You kind of set your DVs that way. It's not mentioned enough or used enough in other ways, and I've always done that. You can see it in my streams where I'll have players kind of set DVs that I'll contest based on doing these checks, and I love that you've incorporated that sort of gameplay, that mechanic into this, because I think it's just, it's a dynamic way to kind of use skill checks by setting DVs that the GM then can test to kind of set the story, and play it out. But no, I love that. Just wanted to point that out, and yeah, moving forward. Sorry to
yep,
stall it up.
yep.
Let's keep moving forward.
Faking all those cadavers cause death, whatever. Those are all contested.
I love that too. Yeah.
Because
I love that you brought up
my whole
faking the cadaver and the cause of death and that sort of stuff, because it's also important to mention like that definitely comes up more than you think. With teams like trying to hide a body, fake their death, fake something else's or an injury, or do something like to manipulate. And most GMs are like, all right, give me a persuasion. Let's contest that, see if you're lying. And I love that like these details are in on being able to inspect a body, creating these DVs to see if they can figure things out. Like awesome work. Great work.
Well, yeah, I love like the investigation kind of thing that you can do. You're like, oh, hey,
Yeah,
medtechs can make really good investigators on some of these things.
exactly.
Oh,
And hand in hand,
so
hand
yeah,
in hand with the media, it can kind of lock in some evidence that
yeah.
increases the believability when breaking a story. So like this all comes in hand with other roles and ways to use it. I love that you've done this. Yeah.
hmm Yeah, and I mean that ties right into like one of the last ones I'm going to mention is surgery, which has tons of uses, obviously, but part of it is autopsy, like so you can go and do an autopsy if you want, because if I'm going to have an investigation, have you looking into somebody's death, well then I need to be ready for you to go, hey, how do I do a talk screen on this dead person? How do I do an autopsy? How do I tell if this is faked? Um, and so, yeah, these contested things, they're really, really good. I like that sort of thing because you just really, it's dynamic.
Exactly.
Um, so, yeah, that gets us through the skills. I definitely recommend GMs and any player of a med tech read through all that stuff. There's tons of ideas in there of how you might use it. You'll probably come up with a bunch more when you're doing it.
Yeah.
And it really helps you kind of flesh out. And it's good to read before you make your character so that you can like make sure that you pick the right skills that you want to be able to do for your character.
And that's a great thing to point out because I'm actually working on some upcoming GM tips videos. I was doing that series for like the past year, and I had a big gap because of all the gameplay, and I've been kind of mapping out new episodes of the Game Master tips, and one of them is player tips sort of stuff, right? Not just Game Master, but going towards the player. And one of the things is about that, like suggesting the skills, like dive into your character. I think it's so much better. Like, don't get me wrong, GMs like suggesting skill checks based on players saying, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Okay, give me this check to see if you succeed. That's typical gameplay. Love it. It works. You can still dive in. But man, gameplay just opens up and gets so much deeper and better when players also are like, oh, can I use this skill to do this? And they start getting creative with doing stuff. It's like, man, it makes the GM start, oh, awesome. And then you start thinking of things, and before you know it, the story just starts evolving into this awesome thing, you know? So yeah, I definitely encourage that too. Like if you're a player out there, you're playing a med tech, you need this. You need to download this, read it, and then start implementing it. And and if your GM isn't so versed in it, that's why you have it. And then you can say, oh, I want to use this, and do it like this. I mean, obviously get the approval from the GM using any type of supplements or homebrew stuff that you're going to bring into gameplay first. Get that approval, But yeah, use it. And look, Raven in chat says I'll be referencing this for Rob's new team. Yeah, because Raven's going to be in my new weekly Cyberpunk team starting in May. She'll be playing a med tech. So yeah, and you've got my approval. Absolutely, use the supplement, dive into these skills, and get creative. I think that'll be a lot of fun. But all right, cool. Moving on. I'm back to the PDF. It's all you.
Yep. So going to the last chapter, this is a ton of flavor, really. Chapter 8 is for medical professionals and businesses. All the medical professionals in here are somebody's character, with I think maybe one exception. It's a person who's in the life path of a character. So like they're all like related. There's somebody spent time thinking about these people and caring about them. So and
it'd be cool for these two. Not to cut you off, because hold that thought, don't lose it. But when you do this, don't streamline this as much. Like obviously, don't read each section verbatim. Everyone, download this, get it for yourself. You know what I mean? But at least mention each one of these. I think it's kind of cool. Like you said, like what you've done here with medical businesses. But yeah, go on.
Yeah. So the medical professionals themselves, the med techs themselves, all the descriptions are written by the person who created them. So it's their words for what they want their character to sound like. The medical businesses, I made those. I wanted to have some examples in here. Balanced living centers is a place that offers therapy and that sort of thing. They offer discount rates for certain people, income-based payments, I think is actually what I say, based on certain qualifications. And they're the one I mentioned about the potential of possible brainwashing effects of their therapies. You never quite know. Especially when you don't remember a lot of what happened in therapy.
Yeah, later on you're just like, I don't know why, but I am just so loyal to buying this one brand all the time now. I'm not addicted to this, or I'm out of this sort of issue, but now for some reason,
yeah, exactly.
Now I'm addicted to this shit. I don't know how that happened, but
yeah. The Body Snatcher Consortium is just an example of a cryotank facility operator. They have little facilities all over the city. They're just out of like apartments. They shove full of cryotanks with just a couple employees, and it's more or less for med techs to come in and put people in cryotanks. Registered cryotank operators, and you can come in there and do that. They expect the med tech to do all the work. You put them in, you take them out, you monitor the vitals, they'll send it to your phone, so you can keep an eye on it, and you deal with it. We're just offering the tanks. The Medical Alternative Resource Exchange, I had to make it say Marks.
I like that.
Is kind of a social movement-y sort of commune kind of idea of med techs and fixers who make medical-based things for the poorest in Night City. They whip together the garbage of other people to make stuff to save lives. And you'll find them, helping people. You also find them out at big protests against corpse and stuff.
It's almost like my my monthly Team Ghost that I have. Like the Veritas one that my wife plays is the Media Corp, but I have a Team Ghost that's been in kind of hiatus for the past months since the holidays, which we might be kind of wrapping that soon, hopefully. But they kind of did that. We started a little med tech sort of Neo Corp. Like they're all different roles, but there is a med tech in there. But they were in the process of hijacking all these supplies, and they're kind of doing that sort of thing, like the sort of Robin Hood vibe of med tech and helping combat zone people and less fortunate get the medical services that they need. And they just got like an RV. They're trying to become do like a mobile sort of healing thing, pulling a trailer med unit. So they were kind of working towards some pretty cool shit. But yeah, it reminds me of that. And also I love how you have it so it says Marks. I love anywhere in Cyberpunk when you can play on names and use letters and abbreviate and have it say something else, or throw the word new using NU or Neo in there. Like obviously it just sets
Yep.
a total Cyberpunk vibe. So I love that you've kind of incorporated some of these things. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hell yeah.
Yep. Manoa is a Ripper Doc clinic that's got a pretty bad reputation for unwilling donations of cybernetics at times, and they work a lot with the Red Chrome Legion and Maelstrom. So if that gives you an idea of the kind of people they deal with.
Oh,
Next Steps Reclamation Services. This is something that I spent a bunch of time thinking about. So there's a biosynthesizer, and it makes body parts, and you got to have something to feed it, which I call biogoop. And you give it some biogoop, and you can make a body part, and make whatever body part you want. Well, where do you get biogoop from? Well, you get biogoop in Night City. The easiest way is to get it from cadavers. You take and break down cadavers into the good stuff and the stuff you don't want, and then you sell the biogoop to people. And so there's services that collect cadavers. I mean, who picks up all the bodies left over after you kill 20 people in the combat
Right.
zone? You know, it's not sitting out there for the next month stinking. No, somebody swoops them up, and within 5 minutes, all the gear's gone. Within an hour, probably all the cyberware's hacked off, but there's still the bodies there. And these services, they known as recyclers, they go and they collect up bodies, and they recycle them into biogoop and sell them off. And some of them offer incentives. So like you might give them several cadavers, and then they give you like some biogoop back, or they maybe they offer other incentives where they pay you a little bit of money, or they do whatever it is.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned like a punch card sort of system. Like it's very
Yep.
like going to Subway or something, like it's
Exactly.
just like a chain. It's very casual. Like they even have a punch card and shit that you get like rewarded or like
Yeah. Yeah, I came up with that for my med tech Knackerman, and I mentioned in his little brief blurb. Where is it, in the pharmaceuticals chapter? And I love it. I was like, no, you got a punch card, and you just like, boop boop. All right, now I got some like free biogoop.
It's very cyberpunk. It brings like that dark vibe, like when you're dealing with cadavers and like some real serious like heavy shit like that, where it's like dead bodies and cadavers and transforming them into goop, the good and the bad stuff, like just the gritty grossness and darkness of all that is just compounded when on top of it you're like, oh, you got your punch card? Let me just click. Oh, great. Hey, you get a discount next time. And like all of a sudden it's just very casual and like happy, and like you get rewarded, and it just becomes this real dark and disturbing. Like I love it.
Yeah. Well, Knackerman's kind of callous. He's a combat medic. He's seen enough death, and he's just kind of like, oh, well, somebody died. All right. Got to clean it up.
Oh, yeah.
So then we get into the actual medical professionals, and I'll just kind of give a quick shout out to each of the people that kind of contributed each of them. You can read through them, but they're great NPCs. If you want to use, they're all over the city. You can pull them in for your games, and oh, you're in this area? Well, here's a guy who's in that area that you can hit up and try to get services. Angel is Linda Whitson's med tech. She actually plays on Cybernation Uncensored in the play-by-post with this character. Artemis is one of my kids.
And just to take a moment, like, anybody out there that's interested in joining our play-by-post, join the Cybernation Uncensored Discord. I know sometimes the teams fill, but it always fluctuates, and there's always times where seats open up there. And we're always looking for more GMs, too, to expand our play-by-post. And like I mentioned earlier, we partnered with, we've been partners with Night City Stories in their West Marches, but we're about to take that up a notch. So lots of gameplay opportunity there. So check out the Cybernation Uncensored Discord. But yeah, back to the medical professionals.
Yep. The next one, Artemis. That's actually one of my kids, Ripperdoc. And she is a veterinarian by training. Worked with the Blood Nation as a circus vet. and she's handled lions in one of the adventures. She had to help handle a Komodo dragon they were trying to sell.
Nice.
Um, she's very anti-cybernetics. We got Dr. Alan Carver. If you watch any of Wandering DM's his Cyberpunk RED stuff, Dr. Carver shows up all the time. He's a very competent doctor who had a very bad drug addiction problem. May have gotten a little clean after one of the players dangled him off a roof by his feet.
Yeah, I think I
So
even on one of their episodes, one of their previous seasons, I went and made an appearance there. I went as a player. I played my wife's character from one of our
that's
previous sessions, Raven. I played her solo over on Wandering DM's channel for fun and got to meet or talk to, I guess, and interrogate Dr. Alan Carver. It was fun.
yeah, yeah. That was a cluster. That whole flavor thing you guys got into.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah. Then Doc is Capricious Nature's cybernetics doctor. Specializes in Borgware. So there's not a lot of people that do Borgware. And that's, her field is totally like cybernetics, solves everything. Dr. Frost / Mr. White, that's from one of Simon's Wandering DM's campaigns, and he's actually the one who got Carver to go clean. He's a fixer / med tech who works for Trauma Team. Knackerman, he's mine. He's a Bangladeshi man that's a combat medic, trained in the military, and got kicked out of his country and is making his life in Night City. He's a bit callous, but he offers all kinds of services, and he likes to go on runs. So you want a combat medic to run with you, he'll go with you. He's competent with full autos and all sorts of crap. He'd rather be out in the field than sitting in, his dank basement where he does surgery. Mad Mags, hold on a second, F in chat for poor Mad Mags, but
Nice.
Mad Mags was from Cyberpunk Goes Nomad, ended up dead, but I had asked Vampire Bites if he wanted to contribute, and he offered up a story and a little blurb on Mags. The Sheik is actually Angel's mentor that I mentioned earlier, is created by Linda Whitson. Then we have Dr. Adelaide Hollow Traversy, which is Hollow from Team Nameless. And she contributed a story at the very beginning of this book. So, like most of these people in here, they wrote some of the stories, as well as gave me a character. In fact, you can kind of go through and you can find the story written by like pretty much every one of them. Except for Sheik. He's in one of the stories. And then we just tie it up. We have another story at the end, and then our credits. And we set up our credits so that it has links to the people who contributed. It was their choice what they wanted in there. Most of them go to like Twitter or something like that. Some don't. But they told me what they wanted if they wanted something in there, and we did that. And I also kind of felt with both the characters and the contributors, I put in pronouns for them so that you know how to refer to all the characters and the contributors if you want to on all this, So I felt that was important, and especially important when some people use like handles or whatever to reference them. So that pretty much ties up the whole thing.
Yeah, no, great job. And I'll tell you what, in getting to dive in on the last ones and streamlining some of the other parts, we went through every section. We got everything mentioned, a couple of the key points, even got to dive into the drugs, and we still kept it within the 2-hour mark. Anybody watching, we wanted to try to keep it like under the nice 2-hour mark for the stream. So it actually like worked out perfectly. So that's great. That's awesome. And anybody in chat, while we're just doing the final outros and chatting about this, if you have any questions, put them in there. Ask now while we got Stinkpalm live, and We can answer any questions about the supplement. Otherwise, let me see one last time. I'll put the link in chat one last time, so everybody can make sure they download this supplement and dive into it yourself. Like I said, we just briefly kind of dabbled in parts of each chapter. We at least explained each chapter so you know what the whole thing has going on. But we absolutely didn't read any of the great stories and lore, dive deep into the different characters that you can use in gameplay, let alone all the details in the charts and things that you've created and put in there. So everybody make sure you download it. And anybody watching the VOD, check it out in the description. I'll have the link there in the description for the YouTube channel. And anybody listening to the podcast, we have a podcast that goes out to like 100 different sites. I'll put the link in the description there. Sometimes those links don't go active on the different podcast platforms. So if you're listening to this, make sure. Oh, hey, thanks for the follow there. Where's Doom? We are so Doom. I think I figured it out. We are so Doom. I might be butchering it. I don't know.
You're so doomed. Yeah.
Thanks for. Okay, cool. We are so doomed. Nice. When it pops up in there, it kind of breaks it in the overlay, so I have to try to figure it out a little bit. But yeah, thanks for the follow. Everybody else that was following too. But yeah, anybody listening to the podcast, if the link's not working on the particular platform you're listening, all you got to do is go to cybernationuncensored.com. Cybernationuncensored.com. We have all kinds of free assets there, but you'll see the medicine in the time of red right there towards the top at the time of airing this live stream and posting the VOD out. If this is farther in the future, you might have to scroll down a little, use the free assets, free stuff, hashtags to locate it, but it's there, and download it, check it out. It is amazing, man. You did a great job, great fucking job. And also with the live stream, diving in and explaining it for the deep dive, man. Awesome. Let me just make sure we didn't get miss any questions.
Let's see. PW's got a question. So things I want to expand on, I'm kind of building a small list. The big one that I really want to hit is I want to hit animals. In my Cyberpunk, there's more animals than in some of the other versions where there are cats and dogs and stuff around the city. And so I want to kind of really dig into that. And Linda, who's helping me with this whole thing as my editor, also has a degree in zoology, so that'll be awesome. And I mean, everybody in my house is an animal lover, so I want to dig into that. There's a couple other areas, and then there were some questions that came up today. What happens when you take therapy drugs without being in therapy, or can you do therapy without drugs, right? Mm-hmm. So as those come up, then I start thinking about them and I start working on a solution for them.
Oh yeah.
Those are a couple areas.
And props from We Are So Doomed, saying as a scientist, I guess We Are So Doomed as a scientist. That's pretty cool. As a scientist, I love the technical details and their accuracy. So there you go. There's some.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, props from a scientist. It says nailed it right there. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, my wife's a scientist, and so and I have some background in medical stuff, nothing like serious, but like done some first responder stuff. I worked in psych inpatient for a while. I've been around. My mom's an ER nurse, so I've been around this stuff my whole life, and I want to try to hit some of that stuff. That's try to get some accuracy in there. Look up stuff when I don't know.
Oh yeah, definitely. Now PWB says, and yet I'm still PW bind. Well, no, I've been rocking the PWB ever since you explained that. Once in a while, we got to rock the PW bind. I like that. It's Mr. Bind if you're nasty. I don't know. Old school Janet Jackson reference. So stupid. But no, I think you did a great job diving in, tearing this thing up. I think, it's an amazing supplement. As you see, Raven even mentions in her character, as she does a med tech on my upcoming stream, she's going to use it. I told you how Night City Stories mentioned how they love it and their players are using it in their West marches. It's awesome, man. Great job. People are loving it. They're using it. I want to encourage anybody watching the stream, watching the VOD, the podcast. If you're using it, if you dig it, let us know in the comments. Comment the VOD on the podcast anywhere. Tag us so we see it. Let us know that you're using it, and tell us in detail how you're using it, how your players have been enjoying it. What parts of it are they using, and what gameplay? I love reading about that sort of stuff and gameplay. So hit us up. Let us know how you're enjoying it. Anybody watching. Aside from that, any famous last words before we cut this thing?
No, I'm not good at famous last words, but
All right, well, some last
reiterate
words,
what you're saying.
some mediocre, okay
A
last words. Let's
mediocre
go with
maybe.
some. I like it.
Also, hit us up if you have problems, right? Like,
Oh yeah,
it's
yeah.
great to hear what's going right, but when I learn what's going wrong, I can try to fix it
Good
and let
point.
me know what the problem is. So, and if you have any questions, if things aren't clear, or you just have questions, or you really want to like, hey, I wish this was in here, hit me up. You can get me on the Cybernation Discord, or you can get me on Twitter. Those are probably the best places to find me. It's Stinkpalm007 in both places. So yeah, let us know what you use, what works, what doesn't,
Exactly.
and what's missing. And
Oh yeah.
I'll put it on my list of notes for next update, and we'll work through that.
Great point. Great point. Also, you just made me think of something too. Anybody watching that's also a creative thinker, content creator, you have ideas, for a supplement or something similar to this. The next deep dive is going to be the vehicles of Red by Capricious Nature, one of our GMs that streams with us. But maybe you have something that you're going to expand on, make a supplement. We would love to host it on the website, promote it to the community, get people using it, and maybe do a deep dive on it. So hit me up in that manner as well. There's another option. Other than that, we see everybody thanking us in the chat. Thank you right back for tuning in, contributing ideas, asking questions, making this a successful live stream, a great deep dive. I want to thank my guest Stinkpalm one last time, and we'll see everybody in the live streams. And next time, hit us up on live. Take care.
Cybernation Uncensored.